come to this independent ethics committee operational procedure.
Everything that the ethics committee does should be documented because it should be transparent. How it was reviewed, how it was submitted, what was submitted, and what was approved, at which meeting, on which day, and who were the members who reviewed it. So everything should be documented so that it's transparent, right? So in case there's an audit, they can see that it was done in a proper manner, unbiased manner. Like P.I. Magnum's wife was not part of the review. They can make sure that that doesn't happen, right? If everything is documented. And written operating procedures, they should form SOPs or standard operating procedures, so they cannot just like that make decisions. There's a proper methodology, right? Written records of its activities, as I mentioned. Minutes of meetings. Every meeting is recorded minutes, right? Like in a law court, there's a person writing shorthand to document everything. So you know exactly what happened, what was the evidence provided, and how was the decision formed. So you know that it's ethical and it's unbiased. And then the most important thing is, as a site or a CRA or a sponsor, we should make sure that no trial subject is admitted to a clinical trial without prior approval of the protocol in question until the HREC, the Human Research Ethics Committee, or the IRB, issues its written approval. And then no deviations from the protocol is allowed after the trial starts until we make an amendment to the protocol and get that amendment approved by the ethics committee. We cannot do deviations. But there's an exception because there's a patient, right? And the patient is like protected by the doctor who gives him or her clinical care. So in the course of the trial, the patient might have a severe adverse event. Patient might fall really, really sick. And then the doctor's primary responsibility will be to the patient, right? So he can actually deviate from the protocol to protect the subject, right? To prevent immediate harm to the subject. That's the only time that deviations from the protocol are allowed. So he can do that and he can document it and he can report that to the ethics committee that there's a protocol deviation that happened to protect the subject. And obviously the ethics committee will be glad that he did that, because there's a rationale and a justification behind that he had to protect the patient from immediate harm. But it has to be recorded and reported to the ethics committee. Like small change deviations are allowed, like logistical deviations, right? But you know what I mean, right? Administrative changes that doesn't have an effect on the treatment to the subject or the assessments done, like administrative. Then we have to look at what are the documents which are reviewed by the ethics committee. So first of all, we have protocols and amendments that I mentioned earlier, and then we have informed consent forms. That's the document that's given to the patient informing about the trial, right? The informed consent that is reviewed by the ethics committee, because they have to make sure that all the information is provided to the patient, that the patient's rights and well-being are protected by reviewing the informed consent form. And subject recruitment materials. So if there are like advertisements to recruit for the trial, the ethics committee needs to review that, because they have to make sure that the subjects are not incentivized or like coerced into the trial, like come here, join our trial. No, you cannot do that. The ethics committee have to make sure that the recruitment material is of an ethical nature, that it just only shows the benefits and of the trial, and what are the pros and cons of the trial, and that it would be a possible alternative or treatment option. That's the only thing that can be in the recruitment material. It cannot be like a corporate advertisement, right? So the ethics committee takes care of that. And all the written information provided to the subjects should be, anything that's provided to the subject should be given to the ethics committee for review. Investigator brochure, which details about the trial drug, its chemistry, its pharmacology, its safety profile, everything is in the IB. So that will be provided to the principal investigator and the site personnel. And that should be reviewed by the ethics committee to make sure that the drug is safe for their patients, right? So the IB. All the safety information should be provided to the ethics committee at the beginning of the trial, and also later on when the safety events occur. It should all be provided to the ethics committee for review, because they will keep a watch, keep a look continuously to see that their subjects are safe. Any payment or compensation provided to the subject should be informed to the ethics committee for their review, because the payments cannot be like arbitrary. It cannot be too excessive. It cannot be like, incentivizing the patients, right? You might have heard of this organ trade market. It cannot be like that. You cannot sell your body, right? The patients only enroll for the trial for their well-being, to treat their condition. That's the only reason, not for money, not for anything else, right? Or to help other patients. That's the only thing. That's the ethics. So the ethics committee take care of that. They will review the payments and compensations and make sure that it's of ethical nature and it's not excessive or it's not incentivizing. And the investigator's CV and their medical license and their qualification should also be provided to the ethics committee. This is to make sure that the trial is done by a qualified principal investigator who has experience in that area, and it makes sense, So the ethics committee will review that also. I told you about the payments, right? So the payment, with regards to payments, it cannot be coercive or incentivizing the subjects. So, the subjects cannot be like puppets controlled by the institute, the companies. The subjects should have their own rights. So the payment should only remunerate the time or the inconvenience for the subjects. That's the only way. It cannot be like a payment, right? So if they miss their time for work, that should be remunerated, but it cannot be excessive. And payment should be prorated according to the subject's participation in the trial. And that's not all. After the ethics clinical trial ends, IRB or Independent Ethics Committee, they should maintain a record of all their procedures and all their meeting minutes and membership list, approvals, submissions, everything, right? At least for 3 years after the completion of the trial, and they should provide it on request in case there's an audit, to make sure that everything happens smoothly. So the written procedures, the membership list, details about members, submitted documents, minutes and meetings, and correspondence, everything should be archived and stored and provided on request. That's the end of the first part of the Independent Ethics Committee. Next one will focus on the submission and the approvals to the Ethics Committee. Ciao for now.